Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about how to choose the right hike. There's a lot of factors that are involved with choosing the right hike, so let's go over them right now. Step number one, what type of shape are we in? Are we in pretty good shape? Without lying to ourselves, we need to make sure that we are holding ourselves to logical expectations when it comes to hiking. I've had this problem a lot, and the satisfaction I get from completing a hike is amazing. So when I don't complete it because I'm out of shape or I'm just not prepared, then that really does put a damper on the situation. So you can use plenty of apps or use the internet just to do some research on some hiking trails. Now, I've done some pretty difficult hikes. I've done the rim to rim hike in the Grand Canyon from the north rim to the south rim, and I wasn't in any type of shape. So that hike was really difficult for me because I wasn't in good shape. And so, of course, afterwards the hike was, when I look back, it was enjoyable, but I should have prepared myself properly for that hike. So, because the hike was planned ahead of time, that's why we chose that hike, and I figured I could get into shape beforehand. So, it's important to figure out what type of hike that you're going to go on. Now, the second thing I think about when choosing a hike is, what type of time frame do I have? Do I have enough time to hike a certain trail that I want to hike? If I only have a couple hours, then I want to make sure that I am choosing the right hike. The important thing is to be safe, but also I like to finish the hike. That sense of accomplishment just really helps my mental health and also my physical health. So every time I complete a hike, it just makes me feel so good, and I just want to get right back out there, and it just makes me love myself even more. The next thing I want to talk about is, what's the weather like? So it's important to do some proper research when choosing a trail. So what is the weather like in your area? And do you have to change your plans because all of a sudden it started raining? So just to know what kind of trails are in your area or the area that you're in, that's perfect when it comes to weather, because if it's going to rain at 2 p.m., here it is 9, you can still go out and do a hike, but you might want to do a shorter hike or a hike that's in an area that's not prone to flash flooding or dangerous situations. You can choose a paved trail within your city or something like that. Or how hot is it going to be? So you don't want to choose a trail that's exposed to the sun if it's the middle of the summertime. So you might want to choose a trail that is in higher elevations so that you can still do your hike, but you can do it comfortably and safe. Another important thing to consider is if you're hiking alone, or who are you hiking with. So I've always mentioned, hike at your own pace and do your own hike. Well, you want to make sure that the people that you're hiking with are either going to stick with you, or that you guys don't mind whether you split up, or I always say it's better to find someone that kind of hikes at your own pace, but that's not always possible. So it's important to get together and figure out, what the plan is in case you split up or whatnot. So it can always ruin a hike if everybody's not on the same page. So, and it's okay to hike alone. A lot of people hike alone. I hike alone and I actually find it very nice, but I also enjoy the company, and I like to split up and then join back up with my group, and that makes the hike enjoyable too. So just think about who you're hiking with or whether you're going to hike alone. And if you're going to hike alone, please let someone know where you're going and when you plan to be back, because you might not have cell phone service in the areas that you're hiking. Also, I do want to mention that if there is a trail register in the area that you're hiking, say you're hiking to a summit, sign the trail register, because if God forbids something happens to you, you know, somebody can say, hey, you know, they made it to the top, they signed here, and so then they kind of have an idea of where you've been last. Another important thing to consider when choosing a trail is what type of gear do you have? Are you just in an area where you're visiting from out of town? You might not have proper shoes. I have flip-flops on right now, and I'm just hiking around, and that's okay, but I wouldn't want to do a long hike in flip-flops. So think about the terrain that you might be on. Do lots of research. Do you have enough water to go on a long hike? Do you have food? Do you have snacks? And do you have a jacket in case it gets cold? In the mountains here in the summertime, just outside Las Vegas, it can drop so instantly, and you might not have the proper gear for cold weather because it's 110 degrees down in Las Vegas. So it's important to pick a trail based on the gear that you have and if you're properly prepared. Now, the last few things I want to mention is what do you want to accomplish from this hike? Do you want to complete a hike? Do you want to do a there and back hike, a loop hike, or whatnot? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want that sense of feeling that you get to be proud of yourself from completing the hike? That's usually what I go for. So I usually choose a trail that I can complete, just like I said in the beginning, and so that I can have that sense of accomplishment. Of course, you want to push yourself and get that physical activity, and maybe you want to build some muscle, maybe you want to prepare for a longer hike. So just think about what you want to accomplish when choosing a trail. And also photography. You know, there's people that are kind of like, you know, it's not about taking photos when you're on a hike, but really, I absolutely love photography. If it wasn't for photography, I probably would not enjoy nature the way I do, because I started to love photography, and that's when I started to get out more. So there are hikes where I don't take any type of photographic, like my camera, or I don't pull out my cell phone, but for the most part, I love snapping those photos and creating memories. What did you think about the video? If you enjoyed it, or you have some tips and tricks for choosing the right trail, please leave that in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because there's a lot of awesome things coming up. If you haven't subscribed as a Patreon, do it, because for only $1 you can get the new edition of my book, The 4 Seasons of Mount Charleston, the fall season. Also, there's printables on there, and there's just so many other cool things on Patreon. Obviously, you're not obligated, but there's always going to be free stuff here on YouTube for people that just are not into the Patreon thing. But I promise you, there are some pretty awesome things happening over there as I'm building it up. There's so many perks, and it's just a really cool platform. Alright, thank you. I'm up here filming for my next YouTube video, and look who's behind me. Alright, so let's talk about how hiking and camping can improve your mental health. Now, just before I started filming this, you notice it's getting kind of dark, and usually I don't plan shoots this late, but for the last hour I was looking for my dog Bruce out here, because he got off of his leash and he was a jerk, and basically he was running away from me the entire time until I saw him. I thought that he was gone for good. I was crying and yelling, but ironically, I wanted to do this segment about mental health. So, the show must go on.